Today, we're about to embark on a journey, one that dives into the very essence of human existence. It's a journey to escape mediocrity, to reach beyond the mundane, and to grasp a reward that can transform your life. But what if I told you that the answer to this journey was hidden in Plato's philosophy? What if this ancient wisdom contained a mind hack, a mental strategy that could set you free from mediocrity and bring you closer to a life of fulfillment and meaning? Now imagine waking up every day and feeling like you're just coasting through life. Maybe you have goals, dreams, and desires, but there's always something holding you back. Maybe it's fear, complacency, or even the belief that the life you envision is just too far out of reach. But let's pause for a moment. Who told you that you have to accept mediocrity? Who made you believe that greatness is for others but not for you? You see, Plato didn't buy into that mindset. Plato believed that within each of us exists the potential for greatness. He saw mediocrity as the result of an unawakened mind, a mind trapped in the shadows of the cave, an image I'm sure many of you are familiar with. In Plato's famous allegory of the cave, he paints a picture of people living their lives in darkness, chained to the walls of a cave, only seeing shadows of reality. This is how most people live, unconsciously accepting what's in front of them as the whole truth, never daring to look beyond. The first step, Plato says, is to recognize that we are in the cave. That's the first mind hack: awareness. Without awareness, we live as if we are asleep, mistaking shadows for reality, never questioning, never exploring. Ask yourself, have you been living in the cave? Have you accepted the shadows as your reality? Think deeply about this, because awareness is the key that unlocks the first door to escaping mediocrity. But awareness alone is not enough. Plato knew that knowledge was only the beginning of wisdom. Once we are aware, we must have the courage to turn around and face the light, to move out of the cave, even if it means discomfort. This process is not easy. It's painful, confusing, and at times terrifying. You might wonder, why would anyone want to leave the comfort of what they know, even if it's a limited reality? This is where courage comes into play. Courage, according to Plato, is the second mind hack. Courage to see the truth, to break away from the comforts of mediocrity, and to step into the unknown.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But here's the real question: do you have that courage? Can you endure the discomfort of change? Can you face the truth, no matter how painful or challenging it might be? Let's be honest, mediocrity is easy. It's safe. It's comfortable. It's the path of least resistance. But we're not here to talk about what's easy. We're here to talk about what's necessary to transform your life. And this brings us to the third mind hack: discipline. You see, Plato believed that once we've become aware and developed the courage to change, the next step is to apply ourselves with discipline. Escape from mediocrity doesn't happen overnight. It requires consistent effort, day in and day out. It's about aligning your actions with your higher purpose, resisting the temptation to fall back into old patterns, and continuously striving to grow. But here's where things get really interesting. Plato didn't just think of discipline as hard work for the sake of hard work. He saw it as a form of harmony, the harmony between reason, spirit, and desire. For Plato, true greatness comes when we learn to govern ourselves, when our rational mind, which knows what is right, takes control over our impulsive desires. This is the mind hack that sets the stage for true reward. When you master yourself, when you align your actions with your highest values, Mediocrity no longer stands a chance. And now, I want you to think deeply about your life. Where have you lacked discipline? Where has fear held you back? Where have you allowed comfort to keep you chained to the cave wall? Think of these areas as chains that bind you to mediocrity. Plato's wisdom tells us that if we don't break these chains, we will never experience the light, the truth, or the greatness that lies outside the cave. So, now we come to the most important part of this first step, the decision. Plato believed that the choice to pursue wisdom, to pursue greatness, is a decision only you can make. No one can force you to escape the cave. No one can force you to seek the light. It must come from within. The question is, will you make that decision? Let's continue our journey. Now that we've set the stage by talking about awareness, courage, and discipline, I want to take you even deeper. If you've followed me this far, then you've already started to ask some difficult questions. You've begun to look at your own life and identify the ways in which mediocrity has kept you in its grip. But now, I want to shift the focus to something even more profound. Plato's Mind Hack isn't just about escaping mediocrity in the conventional sense, it's about unlocking the true philosopher within. It's about tapping into a wisdom so deep, so transformative, that it shifts the way you see the world and your place within it. Plato didn't just want us to be aware. He wanted us to be thinkers, philosophers in the truest sense of the word. He wanted us to question everything, to look beyond the surface of things and see the deeper truths. This brings us to the fourth mind hack, philosophical inquiry. In Plato's world, the philosopher is the one who never stops asking questions, the one who seeks knowledge not for the sake of information, but for the sake of wisdom. Plato believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. But what does that really mean? It means that we cannot afford to go through life passively, simply accepting the norms and values handed to us by society. To escape mediocrity, we must engage in deep, critical reflection. We must ask ourselves the fundamental questions: what is the purpose of life? What is my role in the universe? What does it mean to live a good life? Take a moment right now. Have you ever truly asked yourself these questions? If so, have you found any answers? And if not, why? Why do we so often avoid the deep questions? Is it fear? Is it the discomfort of not knowing? This is where many people get stuck. They think that these questions are too big, too complex, too overwhelming. But Plato believed that asking these questions is the very thing that elevates us above mediocrity. It's what makes us human. So the next mind hack is to embrace uncertainty. Accept that not knowing is part of the journey. In fact, it's the most important part. Now, here's where the magic happens. Once you begin to ask these deep questions, once you start to see the world through the lens of inquiry, something incredible takes place. You start to see patterns. Plato believed that the universe is governed by order, by forms, by archetypes that exist beyond the material world. When you start to ask the right questions, you begin to notice these patterns in your own life. You start to see how everything is interconnected, how your thoughts, your actions, and your desires all shape the world around you. And this is where Plato's ultimate mind hack comes into play: living according to the forms. For Plato, the forms are the perfect ideals that exist beyond the physical world, the perfect form of justice, the perfect form of beauty, the perfect form of truth. To escape mediocrity is to align yourself with these forms. It's to strive for the highest version of yourself, to live in accordance with the ideals that transcend the everyday world. But what does that look like in practical terms? How do you live in accordance with the forms in your daily life? It starts with integrity. It means aligning your actions with your deepest values. It means living in a way that reflects the highest truth you can conceive of. It means refusing to compromise on what matters most. So ask yourself again, what do you value most? What are the forms that you are striving for in your life? Is it justice? Is it wisdom? Is it love? And are your daily actions aligned with those values? Or are you living in a way that is disconnected from your highest ideals? This is where most people fall back into mediocrity. They know what they should be striving for, but they allow distractions, temptations, and fears to pull them off course. They settle for less because it's easier, because it's safer, because it doesn't require the discomfort of growth. But here's the truth: growth is uncomfortable. It requires sacrifice. It requires letting go of the old, familiar ways of being and stepping into something new, something unknown. And this is why so few people ever escape mediocrity. They aren't willing to endure the discomfort of growth. But those who do, those who are willing to take the leap, are rewarded beyond measure. As we move into this final stretch of our journey, we've already covered the mind hacks that Plato offers us: awareness, courage, discipline, philosophical inquiry, and living according to the forms. But what's left? What is the ultimate reward that comes from escaping mediocrity? What happens when we fully integrate Plato's wisdom into our lives? The answer lies in something much deeper than success, fame, or material wealth. The true reward Plato speaks of is a transformation of the soul, a shift from the mundane to the extraordinary, from ignorance to knowledge, from limitation to possibility. So let's dive into this final and most profound mind hack: the transformation of the soul. Plato believed that when we align ourselves with the forms, when we live in accordance with the highest truths, we undergo a metamorphosis. This transformation isn't about external achievements, it's about inner awakening. It's about realizing your true nature, your purpose, and your connection to something greater than yourself. But how does this transformation happen? Let's go back to the allegory of the cave. Once you've become aware of the shadows, once you've mustered the courage to leave the cave, and once you've embraced the discipline and inquiry necessary to walk toward the light, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see the world as it truly is. You no longer live in ignorance, you live in wisdom. This is the ultimate reward Plato speaks of: not material riches, but the riches of the mind and soul. Now, let me ask you this: have you ever felt a sense of clarity, a moment when everything just seemed to make sense? A moment when you felt truly connected to something bigger, something more meaningful? These moments are rare, but they are glimpses of what Plato calls the world of forms. They are flashes of insight, moments when the veil of mediocrity lifts, and you see the world as it truly is: perfect, harmonious, and filled with potential. This is where the transformation begins. But it doesn't stop with fleeting moments of insight. Plato believed that true transformation comes when we live in a state of continual connection to the forms. This is not something that happens overnight, nor is it something that happens by chance. It requires practice, patience, and a deep commitment to living in accordance with truth. Here's the paradox: the more you strive for external rewards, the further you move away from true fulfillment. But when you focus on inner transformation, when you align yourself with the forms, the external rewards naturally follow. Why? Because you are no longer chasing mediocrity. You are living in harmony with the deepest truths of existence, and this creates a ripple effect in every area of your life. But here's the challenge: are you willing to let go of the superficial rewards to achieve something greater? Are you willing to abandon the pursuit of status, validation, and material success in exchange for wisdom, inner peace, and a deep connection to the universe? This is the question that each of us must answer. Let's take this idea even further. Plato believed that the soul's ultimate purpose is to seek the truth, to pursue wisdom, and to transcend the limitations of the physical world. This is not an easy path. It requires sacrifice, dedication, and a willingness to face the uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world. But the reward is profound. When we transform our souls, we not only escape mediocrity, but we also tap into the infinite potential that exists within us. But how do we do this on a practical level? How do we integrate this wisdom into our daily lives? It starts with small, consistent actions. Every day, we are faced with choices that either bring us closer to or further away from the forms. The key is to choose wisely. Every time you act with integrity, every time you resist the temptation to fall back into mediocrity, you are strengthening your connection to the forms. You are transforming your soul, bit by bit, action by action. This brings us to another crucial mind hack: consistency in virtue. Plato believed that the pursuit of wisdom is not a one-time event but a lifelong practice. It's about consistently choosing the higher path, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncomfortable. This is the path to true greatness, the path that leads out of mediocrity and into the realm of the extraordinary. But let's be real for a moment: this path is not for everyone. Most people will never escape the cave. They will continue to live in the shadows, content with mediocrity, because the alternative, growth, change, transformation, is too frightening. But for those of you who are still with me, those of you who are willing to take the leap, the rewards are unimaginable. So here's the final question I want to leave you with: what kind of life do you want to live? Do you want to continue living in the cave, accepting mediocrity as your fate? Or are you ready to step into the light, to embrace the discomfort of growth, and to transform your soul in the pursuit of wisdom? This is the ultimate decision. It's the choice between a life of limitation and a life of possibility. And only you can make that choice. But here's the secret: once you make the choice to pursue wisdom, once you commit to living in accordance with the forms, everything changes. The world opens up in ways you never imagined. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach suddenly become attainable. Challenges that once seemed insurmountable become stepping stones to growth. And the superficial rewards that once held so much power over you lose their grip. This is the true reward of escaping mediocrity: freedom. Freedom from the limitations of the mind, freedom from the constraints of the material world, and freedom to live a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. This is the life that Plato envisioned for each of us: a life that transcends the ordinary and taps into the extraordinary potential that lies within. So, the final mind hack is this: embrace the journey. Understand that escaping mediocrity is not a destination, it's a process, a lifelong pursuit. There will be moments of doubt, moments of fear, and moments of setback. But if you stay committed to the path, if you continue to strive for the forms, you will experience a transformation that goes beyond anything you could ever imagine. And here's the most beautiful part: this transformation is available to all of us. It doesn't matter where you start, what challenges you face, or how far you've fallen into mediocrity. The path to greatness is always open, always available. All it requires is the decision to begin. So as we come to the end of this journey, I want to leave you with one final thought. You have the power to escape mediocrity. You have the power to transform your life, to awaken your mind, and to connect with the highest truths of existence. The only question is, will you choose to take that step? The reward is waiting. It's not in the distant future, it's here, now, in this very moment. All you have to do is reach out and claim it. While we have reached the conclusion of this discussion, it is important to recognize that what we've covered so far is just the beginning of your journey. Escaping mediocrity, as we explored through Plato's teachings, isn't a singular event, but a continuous evolving process. Each day presents a new opportunity to either step forward into growth or slip back into complacency. And while the reward of transformation is available to all, it is only attained by those who remain steadfast in their pursuit of wisdom, truth, and self-mastery. Now, as we wrap up, let's reflect for a moment. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you allow it to simply be an interesting conversation you listen to, or will you take action and make a commitment to yourself? The wisdom that Plato imparted centuries ago is still as powerful and relevant today, but its impact depends entirely on how you choose to apply it. One of the core teachings we explored was Plato's emphasis on philosophical inquiry, the relentless questioning of the world and ourselves. We examined how this inquiry doesn't just provide answers, it deepens our understanding of the true nature of existence. The more we engage with the questions, the more profound our insights become. But the real power lies not just in seeking answers, but in allowing the inquiry itself to shape who we are. Plato believed that the pursuit of wisdom is a lifelong endeavor. So, let me ask you this: are you willing to dedicate yourself to a life of constant questioning and exploration? If the answer is yes, then you've already taken your first step out of the cave. Next, we touched upon courage, the courage to face the truth, and the courage to step into the light, even when it's uncomfortable. Escaping mediocrity requires confronting the parts of ourselves that we would often rather avoid. It's about being honest about our limitations, our fears, and the areas where we've fallen short. But it's also about having the courage to believe in our potential for greatness, to strive for something more, even when it feels like an uphill battle. So now the question becomes, do you have the courage to face your own shadows? To break free from the chains that have held you back, whether those chains are fear, doubt, or the comfort of the familiar. It's not easy, but Plato reminds us that it's the only way to truly experience the light. Then there's the mind hack of discipline, the practice of consistently aligning your actions with your highest values. In a world that constantly pulls us toward distraction and superficial success, discipline is the anchor that keeps us grounded in what truly matters. Plato understood that without discipline, our efforts to escape mediocrity would falter. Greatness is not achieved by sporadic moments of effort. It's the result of daily, deliberate action, no matter how small. But discipline isn't just about willpower. It's about harmony, bringing all parts of ourselves into alignment so that our thoughts, desires, and actions are moving in the same direction. When we are in harmony with ourselves, mediocrity loses its grip. We become unstoppable. Let me ask you again, are you ready to cultivate the discipline required to live in accordance with your highest ideals? not just for a day or a week, but for a lifetime? Finally, we come to the ultimate reward: transformation. As we discussed, this is not a reward you can see or touch, it's something much deeper. It's the transformation of the soul. It's the shift from living in the shadows of ignorance to walking in the light of wisdom. It's the realization that the rewards we seek, fulfillment, peace, purpose, are not found outside of us but within. Plato's wisdom shows us that when we align ourselves with truth, when we live in accordance with the forms, we become the very thing we've been seeking. This transformation is subtle, but it's also profound. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, over time, as we continue to apply these mind hacks to our daily lives. But once it begins, it changes everything. We no longer feel like we're merely existing, we begin to truly live. Now, I want you to take a moment and imagine what that transformation would look like for you. Imagine waking up each day with a sense of purpose, knowing that you are living in alignment with your highest self. Imagine feeling a deep sense of peace, no longer chasing after external validation or material success, but finding fulfillment in the pursuit of wisdom and truth. Imagine the freedom that comes from escaping mediocrity and stepping into the life you were always meant to live. This is the promise of Plato's philosophy, and it's available to you right now. But the journey doesn't end here. It's only just beginning. The real work starts when you take what you've learned and put it into practice. So as we close, I want to leave you with one final challenge. What will you do next? Will you take the first step toward escaping mediocrity, or will you remain in the cave, content with the shadows? The choice is yours. The rewards are waiting. And as Plato would say, the only thing standing between you and the life of greatness you deserve is the decision to pursue wisdom with every fiber of your being.